Document. Part 1 of aliens laughed at war and ruin until they met mankind. The sky above Earth was unusually quiet that morning. The sun rose over the horizon, painting the world in soft shades of orange and pink. People went about their daily lives, unaware that something extraordinary was about to happen. In New York City, a young woman named Laura Bennett sipped her coffee as she walked to work. She was a linguist, someone who studied languages, and today felt like any other ordinary day. Across the country in a military base near Colorado Springs, Jack Monroe sat in a dimly lit room filled with maps and screens. He was a strategist, known for his sharp mind and calm demeanor under pressure. But this day would not stay ordinary for long. High above Earth's atmosphere, something massive moved silently through space. It was a fleet of ships, sleek and metallic, glowing faintly against the blackness of the void. These were not human vessels. They belonged to the Kryn, an alien race that had traveled across galaxies, conquering planets and absorbing their resources. To them, war was not just a means to an end. It was entertainment. They laughed at the chaos they left behind, mocking those too weak to resist. On Earth, no one saw them coming until it was too late. A sudden burst of energy lit up the skies, brighter than the sun itself. The Kryn fleet emerged from hyperspace, positioning themselves around Earth like predators circling prey. Panic spread quickly as news outlets scrambled to report what was happening. Governments held emergency meetings trying to make sense of the situation. Was this an invasion? A negotiation? Something else entirely? Jack Monroe was called into action almost immediately. His commanding officer, General Harold Carter, briefed him on the situation. "We don't know much yet," Carter said, pointing to a live feed showing the alien ships hovering ominously. "But we need to be ready for anything." Jack nodded, his expression unreadable. He had faced difficult situations before, but nothing like this. Humanity was completely outmatched. The Kryn ships were larger than cities, bristling with weapons, far beyond anything humans could create. Yet Jack knew fear wouldn't help. What mattered now was finding a way to survive. Meanwhile, Laura Bennett received a call while she was still on her way to the university. It wasn't from her colleagues or students, it was from the government. They needed her expertise urgently. Confused but intrigued, Laura agreed to meet with officials at a secure facility. When she arrived, she found herself surrounded by scientists, military personnel, and politicians, all discussing the same thing: how to communicate with the aliens. At first, the Kryn didn't say anything. Their silence was deafening, stretching for hours as the world waited anxiously. Then, without warning, a message came through. It wasn't spoken in words, but transmitted directly into every radio, television, and smartphone on the planet. The voice was deep and cold, dripping with arrogance. "Humans," it began, "you are primitive. Your wars are pathetic. Your civilizations crumble easily. We have watched you destroy yourselves for centuries. We will take what is ours." The message ended with laughter, a sound so alien and cruel that it sent chills down spines worldwide. For many, it felt like the end of everything. But for Jack and Laura, it was a challenge. They couldn't let humanity fall without a fight. As the hours passed, the Kryn made their intentions clear. One of their smaller ships descended into Earth's atmosphere, landing in Central Park. Soldiers surrounded the area, weapons raised, unsure of what to expect. Civilians gathered at a distance, some recording videos, others crying in terror. From the ship emerged figures unlike anything anyone had ever seen. They were tall, insect-like creatures with shiny black exoskeletons and multiple limbs. Their eyes glowed faintly, scanning the crowd with detached curiosity. Laura stood among the scientists observing the scene. Her heart raced as she watched the Kryn step forward. They carried themselves with an air of superiority, laughing openly at the humans' attempts to appear strong. "You think your weapons can harm us?" one of them said, its voice translated automatically into English. "Your efforts are amusing." Jack watched the exchange from a nearby command post. His jaw tightened as he listened to the aliens mock humanity. He wanted to retaliate, to show them that humans weren't as weak as they thought, but he knew better. Acting impulsively would only lead to disaster. Instead, he focused on gathering information, studying the aliens' movements and behavior. There had to be a weakness somewhere, something they weren't showing. Laura noticed something interesting during the encounter. While the Kryn spoke confidently, their body language told a different story. Subtle shifts in posture, slight hesitations in movement. It was almost as if they were testing humanity, probing for reactions. She scribbled notes furiously, realizing these details might hold the key to understanding their true nature. By the end of the day, the Kryn returned to their ship, leaving humanity shaken but alive for now. As the alien vessel ascended back into the sky, Jack turned to Laura. "Did you notice anything useful?" he asked, his tone serious. She nodded, clutching her notebook tightly. "They're not invincible," she replied. "There's more to them than they're letting on." Jack smiled faintly, feeling a spark of hope. If there was one thing humans excelled at, it was adapting. No matter how powerful the Kryn seemed, they hadn't faced an opponent quite like humanity before. And that, Jack believed, might just be their undoing. For now, though, the battle lines were drawn. Kryn thought they had already won. But humanity wasn't ready to give up, not yet. Asterisk document. Part 2 of Aliens laughed at war and ruin until they met mankind. The days following the Kryn's arrival felt like a strange mix of chaos and eerie calm. The world was holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. Governments tried to keep order, but panic spread faster than any official statement could control. People stockpiled food, boarded up windows, and whispered about the end of the world. Yet amidst the fear, there was also defiance. Humanity had faced disasters before: wars, plagues, natural calamities, and it had always found a way to survive. This time wouldn't be any different in Colorado Springs. Jack Monroe worked tirelessly, poring over data and formulating plans. His office was cluttered with maps, satellite images, and notes scribbled on scraps of paper. He barely slept, his mind racing with possibilities. How could humanity stand against such overwhelming power? The Kryn's technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. Their ships were impervious to conventional weapons, their soldiers seemingly invincible. But Jack refused to believe they were unbeatable. Every empire had weaknesses, no matter how strong it appeared on the surface. Laura Bennett, meanwhile, was stationed in New York City, where the Kryn had chosen to establish their temporary base. She spent her days analyzing every piece of information she could gather about the aliens. Her notebook filled up quickly with observations: how they moved, how they communicated, even how they reacted to human behavior. Laura noticed patterns that others might have missed. For instance, when humans showed aggression, the Kryn laughed louder, almost as if they enjoyed being challenged. But when humans remained calm and composed, the aliens seemed slightly unsettled, though they tried hard not to show it. One morning, the Kryn sent another message. It came through loudspeakers across the globe, interrupting broadcasts mid-sentence. "Humans," the cold voice began again. "Your leaders are weak. Your armies are meaningless. Surrender now, and we may spare some of you." Dive. The laughter that followed was chilling, but it did something unexpected. It ignited a fire within people. Protests erupted in cities worldwide. People carried signs reading, "We won't give up," and "Earth fights back." Even those who had been paralyzed by fear found courage in numbers. Social media buzzed with videos of ordinary citizens standing tall, refusing to bow to the invaders. For the first time since the Kryn's arrival, humanity felt united. Jack watched these developments from his command center, feeling a flicker of hope. He called an emergency meeting with General Carter and other military leaders. Around the table sat men and women tasked with protecting Earth, each carrying the weight of billions of lives on their shoulders. Jack stood at the front, pointing to a map of the Kryn fleet's positions. "We can't fight them head-on," he said firmly. "They're too advanced, but we can use unconventional tactics. Guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run attacks. Make them think twice about messing with us." Some officers nodded in agreement, while others frowned skeptically. Colonel Daniel West, a gruff man with years of combat experience, spoke up. "You want us to hide and sneak around?" "That's not how wars are won. It's how wars are survived," Jack shot back. "If we charge straight at them, we'll lose everything. We need to outsmart them, not overpower them. The room fell silent as everyone considered Jack's words. Finally, General Carter broke the silence. "Do it," he said. "But make sure it works. We don't get a second chance." While Jack focused on strategy, Laura continued her work studying the Kryn. One evening, she noticed something peculiar during a live feed of the aliens patrolling Central Park. When one of the Kryn gestured toward a group of humans, its movements were accompanied by faint vibrations in the air, almost like sound waves, but too subtle for most people to detect. Laura leaned closer to her screen, her heart racing. Could this be part of their communication system? She shared her findings with Ryan Miller, a young scientist working alongside her. Ryan had a knack for technology and immediately set up equipment to analyze the vibrations. After hours of testing, they discovered something groundbreaking. The Kryn relied heavily on nonverbal signals to convey complex messages. Their glowing eyes and body movements weren't just for show, they were integral to their language. "This is huge," Ryan said, excitement lighting up his face. "If we can decode their gestures, we might be able to predict their actions, or even trick them." Laura nodded, already thinking ahead. If they could mimic the Kryn's signals, they might create distractions or mislead the aliens into making mistakes. It was risky, but it was also their best chance at gaining an advantage. As the days passed, tensions between humanity and the Kryn escalated. The aliens grew impatient with humanity's refusal to surrender. They began conducting experiments, capturing small groups of humans and subjecting them to tests. News reports showed footage of terrified civilians being taken aboard alien ships, never to return. Anger boiled over, and calls for retaliation grew louder. Some argued that diplomacy was pointless. The only answer was violence. Jack understood the anger, but he knew acting recklessly would play right into the Kryn's hands. Instead, he proposed a daring plan: infiltrate the Kryn's operations in Central Park and gather intelligence firsthand. It was dangerous but necessary. General Carter approved the mission, assigning a team of elite operatives to accompany Jack and Laura. Among them was Daniel, who still doubted Jack's methods but respected his determination. On the night of the operation, the team moved quietly through the shadows of Central Park. The Kryn had set up a makeshift outpost near the Great Lawn, surrounded by glowing barriers that pulsed with energy. Jack led the group, his eyes scanning the area for weaknesses. Laura stayed close, clutching a device Ryan had built to record the aliens' movements. Every step felt like walking through a minefield, but they pressed on, driven by the hope of finding something valuable. Suddenly, a patrol of Kryn soldiers approached, their insectoid bodies clicking softly as they walked. The team froze, hearts pounding. Laura activated the recording device, hoping to capture more data without alerting the aliens. To their relief, the Kryn passed by without noticing them. But then, one of the soldiers paused, tilting its head, as if sensing something amiss. "Move," Jack whispered urgently, signaling the team to retreat. They slipped away just in time, narrowly avoiding detection. Once they were safely back at their base, Laura reviewed the recordings. What she saw confirmed her earlier suspicions. The Kryn's body language wasn't just communication, it was a reflection of their emotions. When agitated, their movements became sharper, more erratic. When confident, they moved deliberately, almost lazily. "They're not machines," Laura told Jack later that night. "They feel things, even if they try to hide it. It means they can be rattled." Jack smiled, impressed by her insight. "Then, let's rattle them." As dawn broke over the city, the team prepared for the next phase of their plan. They didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain: humanity wasn't going down without a fight. The Kryn had underestimated their opponents, and that mistake would cost them dearly. *** document. Part 3 of Aliens Laughed at War and Ruin Until They Met Mankind. *** The mood in the command center was tense but focused. Jack Monroe paced back and forth, his boots clicking softly against the tiled floor. Maps of Central Park and the surrounding areas were spread across a large table, marked with red circles and arrows. Each symbol represented a potential target or route for their next move. The team had gathered to finalize their plan, knowing that failure wasn't an option. Humanity's survival depended on what they did next. Laura Bennett sat at the edge, of the room, her laptop open as she reviewed the data they'd collected from their recent infiltration mission.
Oh.
Her fingers flew over the keyboard, organizing the recordings of the Kryn's movements into patterns.
Oh.
She had spent hours analyzing every detail, searching for anything that could give them an edge. Beside her, Ryan Miller tinkered with a small device he called the Signal Disruptor. It was a prototype designed to mimic the Kryn's communication signals, creating confusion among their ranks. "We need to hit them where it hurts," Jack said, breaking the silence. He pointed to a cluster of glowing symbols on one of the maps. "Their central outpost in Central Park is heavily guarded. But if we can create a distraction, we might be able to slip inside and gather more intel." Colonel Daniel West crossed his arms, skepticism written all over his face. "A distraction? You're talking about risking lives for something that might not even work." "It's our best shot," Jack replied calmly. "We can't win this by playing it safe. If we don't take risks, we'll lose everything." Daniel sighed but didn't argue further. Despite his doubts, he respected Jack's leadership. Over the past few days, Jack had earned the trust of the team not through force, but through determination and clear thinking. Even Laura, who usually avoided conflict, admired how Jack balanced logic with courage. The plan was simple, yet risky. A small group would create chaos near the outskirts of the Kryn's territory, drawing their attention away from the main outpost. Meanwhile, Jack, Laura, and a few others would sneak into the heart of the alien camp, gathering critical information. While the Kryn were distracted, the goal wasn't to destroy the aliens outright. It was to learn as much as possible about their technology and weaknesses. As preparations began, tensions ran high. Soldiers double-checked their weapons, ensuring they were ready for whatever came next. Engineers fine-tuned the equipment, making sure nothing malfunctioned during the mission. Laura stayed glued to her laptop, running simulations of the Kryn's likely responses to different scenarios. Every calculation mattered. Every second counted. That night, under the cover of darkness, the team moved out. The air was cool, and the streets were eerily quiet, as if the city itself held its breath. Jack led the way, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. Behind him, Laura carried the Signal Disruptor, clutching it tightly like a lifeline. She wasn't used to combat situations, but she knew her role was just as important as anyone else's. The first phase of the operation went smoothly. The decoy team launched a series of small explosions near the southern edge of Central Park, creating enough noise and light to draw the Kryn's attention. The aliens responded quickly, sending patrols to investigate the disturbance. Their glowing eyes scanned the area. Their insectoid limbs clicked impatiently as they searched for the source of the attack. Meanwhile, Jack's group slipped through the northern perimeter, avoiding detection. They moved silently, sticking to the shadows and using trees and bushes as cover. Laura kept glancing at the Signal Disruptor, waiting for the right moment to activate it. When they reached the edge of the Kryn's central outpost, Jack signaled for everyone to stop. "Now," he whispered, nodding toward Laura. She hesitated for a split second before pressing the button on the device. A low hum filled the air, barely audible to human ears. To the Kryn, however, it was deafening.
"There."
Glowing eyes flickered. Their movements became erratic as they struggled to process the false signals flooding their senses. Some of them froze in place, confused, while others turned in circles, trying to locate the source of the interference. Jack seized the opportunity. "Let's go," he said, leading the team forward. Inside the outpost, they found themselves surrounded by strange machinery, unlike anything they'd ever seen. Panels glowed with alien symbols, and wires pulsed with energy. Laura immediately began recording everything, her camera capturing every detail. Ryan worked alongside her, downloading data from the devices onto portable drives. Time was running out. They couldn't afford to linger too long. Suddenly, one of the Kryn soldiers appeared, its sharp limbs raised defensively. Before it could react, Jack stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "We're not here to fight," he said, hoping the translation system embedded in his suit would convey his message accurately. The alien tilted its head, its glowing eyes narrowing. For a moment, no one moved. Then, to everyone's surprise, the Kryn lowered its arms slightly, emitting a series of clicks and whistles. Laura listened intently, recognizing some of the patterns from her earlier research. She realized the alien wasn't threatening them. It was curious. "They want to know why we're here," Laura whispered to Jack, translating the alien's gestures. "They think we're spies." Jack nodded, keeping his voice steady. "Tell them we're explorers. We came to understand them." Laura mimicked the appropriate gestures, her hands trembling slightly. The Kryn watched her closely, its posture relaxing ever so slightly. It made a sound that resembled laughter, a chilling reminder of the alien's arrogance, but it didn't attack. Instead, it gestured toward one of the machines, inviting them closer. Ryan approached cautiously, examining the device. It looked like a control panel, though its purpose remained unclear. As he studied it, the Kryn emitted another series of clicks, this time accompanied by rapid movements of its limbs. Laura interpreted the signals as instructions, guiding Ryan on how to interact with the machine. "This is incredible," Ryan muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. "If we can figure this out, we might be able to disable parts of their network." But their success was short-lived. The signal disruptor's effect began to wear off, and the other Kryn soldiers started regaining their composure. Alarms blared throughout the outpost, signaling the return of reinforcements. Jack cursed under his breath, knowing they had overstayed their welcome. "Time to go," he shouted, grabbing Laura's arm and pulling her toward the exit. The team sprinted through the park, dodging blasts of energy fired by the recovering Kryn. The aliens' laughter echoed behind them, mocking their retreat. But despite the close call, they managed to escape unharmed, carrying valuable data with them. Back at the base, the team celebrated their narrow victory. Laura uploaded the recordings and downloaded files onto secure servers, eager to analyze them further. Ryan examined the schematics of the alien machinery, already brainstorming ways to exploit its vulnerabilities. Jack stood quietly in the corner, watching his team work with pride. For the first time since the Kryn's arrival, there was a glimmer of hope. Humanity had proven that it could adapt, improvise, and strike back. The aliens had laughed at Earth's supposed weakness, but now they were beginning to realize their mistake. Humans weren't easy prey. They were survivors, and the fight was far from over. *** document. Part 4 of Aliens Laughed at War and Ruin Until They Met Mankind. *** The aftermath of the mission left everyone exhausted but invigorated. Jack Monroe leaned against a wall in the command center, his arms crossed as he watched his team pore over the data they had retrieved from the Kryn outpost. The room buzzed with energy scientists typed furiously on keyboards. Engineers dissected alien schematics, and analysts reviewed footage frame by frame. It was clear that humanity's first real strike against the invaders had paid off. But Jack knew this was only the beginning. Laura Bennett sat hunched over her laptop, her eyes scanning line after line of alien symbols. She had spent hours translating the signals recorded during their infiltration, piecing together fragments of meaning. Her brow furrowed in concentration, but there was a spark of excitement in her expression. For the first time, she felt like they were making progress, just reacting to the Kryn, but understanding them. Ryan Miller, meanwhile, tinkered with one of the devices salvaged from the outpost. It was small enough to fit in the palm of his hand, yet it hummed with an otherworldly energy. Ryan suspected it was some kind of communication relay, a tool the Kryn used to coordinate their forces. If he could reverse engineer it, they might be able to disrupt the aliens' network on a larger scale. "This is incredible," Ryan muttered, holding up the device for Laura to see. "If we can figure out how this works, we could shut down entire sections of their fleet." Laura nodded, though her mind was elsewhere. She had noticed something strange while reviewing the recordings. The Kryn's gestures and vocalizations weren't just random, they followed distinct patterns, almost like a code. And buried within those patterns were hints of emotion, fear, anger, even curiosity. These aliens weren't as cold and mechanical as they appeared. They were capable of feeling, which meant they could also be manipulated. Jack approached the pair, his expression serious. "What have you got?" he asked, leaning over their shoulders. "We're close," Laura replied without looking up. I think I've found a way to predict their movements based on their body language. If we can anticipate what they'll do next, we can stay one step ahead, Ryan chimed in, pointing to the device in his hand. And if we can jam their coms, we can cripple their coordination. Without it, they're not nearly as dangerous. Jack nodded thoughtfully. Good work. Keep pushing. We need every advantage we can get. As the team continued their work, tensions outside the base grew thicker. News of the infiltration spread quickly, igniting both hope and fear among the public. Some celebrated the daring raid, calling it proof that humanity could fight back. Others worried that the Kryn would retaliate with even greater force. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, demanding answers from world leaders. People wanted to know what was being done to protect them and whether Earth stood a chance against such powerful enemies. In response, President Emily Hayes addressed the nation in a televised speech. Standing behind a podium flanked by military officials, she spoke with calm authority. We will not surrender, she declared, her voice steady. The bravery of our men and women has shown us that we are stronger than they thought. Together, we will find a way to defend our home. Her words resonated with millions, but Jack knew speeches wouldn't win the war. Action would. He called another meeting with General Carter and Colonel Daniel West to discuss their next move. Around the table sat strategists, scientists, and field operatives. All focused on one goal: hitting the Kryn where it hurt most. We need to take out one of their ships, Jack said, pointing to a holographic map of the alien fleet hovering above Earth. Not just damage it, destroy it. If we can show them that we're willing to fight dirty, they'll start doubting their own superiority. Daniel frowned, his skepticism evident. You're talking about suicide. Their shields are impenetrable. How do you propose we even scratch them? Jack didn't hesitate. With EMP weapons, Ryan's been working on prototypes. If we can disable their systems long enough, we can board the ship and plant explosives. The room fell silent as everyone considered the plan. It was bold, risky, and likely to fail, but it was also the best option they had. After a moment, General Carter gave a curt nod. Do it. But make sure your team is ready. One mistake, and we lose everything. Preparations began immediately. Engineers worked around the clock to refine the EMP weapons, testing them on captured alien tech scavenged from previous encounters. Meanwhile, Jack assembled a squad of elite soldiers to carry out the operation. Among them was Daniel, who reluctantly agreed to join despite his reservations. Laura insisted on coming along as well, arguing that her knowledge of the Kryn's communication patterns could prove invaluable. Jack hesitated but eventually relented, knowing her expertise might save lives. On the night of the attack, the team gathered at a remote airfield. A modified aircraft waited on the runway, its engines roaring softly. Inside, crates of EMP devices and explosives were loaded onto the plane, ready for deployment. Jack addressed the group, his tone firm but reassuring. This isn't going to be easy, he said, meeting each person's gaze. But we've trained for this. We've prepared for this. And we're not fighting alone. Every man, woman, and child on this planet is counting on us. Let's show the Kryn why they should never have messed with Earth. The flight to the target zone was tense. Everyone sat in silence, lost in their thoughts. Laura clutched her notebook tightly, reviewing the alien gestures she had memorized. Ryan checked the EMP devices one last time, ensuring they were fully charged. Daniel stared out the window, his jaw clenched as he mentally rehearsed the mission. When they reached the designated coordinates, the pilot dropped altitude, bringing the plane dangerously close to one of the smaller Kryn vessels. The ship loomed above them, its sleek surface reflecting the moonlight like liquid metal. As the team prepared to deploy, Jack activated the EMP weapon, aiming it directly at the alien craft. A pulse of energy surged outward, invisible to the naked eye but devastating in its effects. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, the Kryn ship shuddered violently, its lights flickering before going dark entirely. Cheers erupted inside the plane as the team realized the EMP had worked. The ship's shields were down, leaving it vulnerable. Go, Jack shouted, signaling the team to move. They rappelled down from the plane onto the hull of the disabled vessel, moving quickly to avoid detection. Using plasma cutters, they breached the outer shell and entered the ship. Inside, the atmosphere was eerie silent, except for the faint hum of dying systems. Alien corridors stretched endlessly, lined with glowing panels and strange machinery. Laura stayed close to Jack, her eyes darting nervously as she scanned for signs of movement. The Kryn were disoriented, stumbling through the darkness as their systems rebooted, but they weren't completely helpless. One patrol rounded a corner unexpectedly, their glowing eyes locking onto the intruders. "Take cover," Jack yelled, diving behind a console as energy blasts sizzled past him. The firefight was intense but brief. The team managed to neutralize the patrol, though not without injuries. Daniel took a hit to his shoulder, gritting his teeth as he patched himself up with a medkit. Despite the setback, they pressed on, determined to complete their mission. At the heart of the ship, they found what they were looking for, a massive power core pulsing with energy. Ryan set to work planting explosives, his hands trembling slightly as he connected wires to the detonator. "This thing is going to blow the whole ship apart," he said, glancing at Jack. "Are you sure about this?" Jack nodded grimly. "It's the only way." As the timer ticked down, the team retreated toward the exit. Behind them, alarms blared, warning of the impending explosion. The Kryn scrambled to regain control, but it was too late. With seconds to spare, the humans leaped back onto their plane, pulling away just as the ship erupted in a fiery inferno. The shockwave rocked the aircraft, sending it lurching sideways. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like they wouldn't make it. But the pilot regained control, steering them safely back toward Earth. Below, the horizon glowed orange as dawn broke over the planet. Back at the base, celebrations erupted. Successful destruction of the Kryn ship sent a clear message. Humanity wasn't going down without a fight. For the first time, the aliens looked uncertain, their laughter replaced by wary silence. Jack stood quietly watching the sunrise. There was still much to do, but for now, they had won a small victory. Sometimes that was **** document. Part 5 of Aliens laughed at war and ruin until they met mankind. ***, the destruction of the Kryn ship sent shockwaves, not just through the alien fleet, but across Earth as well. News of the victory spread like wildfire, igniting a mix of hope and defiance among humanity. Social media lit up with videos of people cheering in the streets, holding signs that read "We can win" and "Earth strikes back." For the first time since the Kryn's arrival, there was a sense that maybe, just maybe, humanity stood a chance. But Jack Monroe wasn't celebrating. He stood in the command center, staring at the screens, displaying images of the smoldering wreckage floating in orbit. The mission had been a success, yes, but it came at a cost. 2 members of his team hadn't made it back alive, their lives lost during the firefight inside the alien vessel. Their faces lingered in Jack's mind, a reminder of the sacrifices being made. He knew this war was far from over, and every victory would demand more blood, sweat, and tears. Laura Bennett sat nearby, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. She felt the weight of what they'd done, too. The Kryn weren't just faceless invaders. They were living beings, even if they seemed so different from humans. Laura couldn't help but wonder how many of them had died in the explosion. Still, she reminded herself why they had acted. It wasn't cruelty. It was survival. If humanity didn't fight back, the Kryn would take everything Earth's resources, its cities, its people. Ryan Miller, on the other hand, was buzzing with excitement. He paced around the room, talking animatedly about the data they had gathered from the destroyed ship. "This is huge," he said, waving a tablet filled with schematics and alien symbols. "If we can replicate their technology, we might be able to turn the tide completely. Imagine using their own weapons against them." Jack listened half-heartedly, his thoughts elsewhere. While Ryan's enthusiasm was understandable, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing a dangerous game. Every move they made was a gamble, and the stakes kept getting higher. The Kryn wouldn't let this attack go unanswered. Retaliation was inevitable, and when it came, it would likely be devastating. As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout. "The base!" a technician shouted from his station. "Sir, we've got incoming transmissions from the Kryn fleet." Everyone froze, turning toward the monitors. On the screen, the glowing eyes of Zorak, the Kryn leader, appeared. His voice boomed through the speakers, colder and angrier than ever before. "Humans," he hissed, "you have made a grave mistake. Your pathetic attempts to resist will only bring ruin upon your kind. You think you are clever? You think you are strong? You are nothing but insects beneath our feet." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room in silence. Jack clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. The Kryn's arrogance was infuriating, but it also gave him an idea. These aliens thought themselves superior, untouchable. They believed humanity was weak because it lacked their advanced technology. What they didn't understand was that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its tools, its creativity, resilience, and ability to adapt. "We need to show them there." "Wrong," Jack said finally, breaking the quiet. "They see us as primitive, but that's exactly what we'll use against them. We'll hit them where they least expect it with strategies they can't predict." Laura nodded slowly, catching his meaning. "You mean psychological warfare?" She said, "Make them doubt themselves. Make them scared." "Exactly," Jack replied. "Fear is a powerful weapon. If we can make them second-guess their dominance, we'll gain the upper hand." The team got to work immediately, brainstorming ways to exploit the Kryn's weaknesses. Laura suggested focusing on their reliance on stolen technology. From her studies, she had learned that the Kryn didn't innovate, they scavenged. Their entire civilization was built on plundering other species' advancements. This dependency could be their undoing if humanity found a way to disrupt their access to new tech. Ryan proposed creating decoys, fake research facilities and labs designed to lure the Kryn into wasting resources. "We can rig them with traps." He explained, "When they send scouts to investigate, we'll ambush them. Every time they lose soldiers or ships, it'll chip away at their confidence." Colonel Daniel West added his input, advocating for targeted strikes against smaller Kryn vessels. "We may not be able to take out their mothership yet, but we can keep picking off their support fleet. That'll weaken their overall strength." Jack listened carefully, weighing each suggestion. By the end of the meeting, they had a plan, a multi-pronged approach combining deception, sabotage, and direct action. It was risky, but it offered the best chance of keeping the Kryn off balance. Over the next few days, the team put their strategy into motion. Fake facilities were constructed in remote locations, complete with dummy equipment and false signals meant to mimic high-tech activity. Meanwhile, small strike teams carried out raids on Kryn supply lines, destroying transports and disabling drones. Each operation was quick and precise, designed to maximize impact while minimizing risk. One night, Laura stayed late in the lab, reviewing footage of the Kryn's reactions to their tactics. To her surprise, she noticed subtle changes in their behavior. When their scouts returned empty-handed from investigating the decoy sites, their body language shifted. Instead of laughing or mocking humanity, they moved hesitantly, almost nervously. Some even argued among themselves, their gestures sharp and agitated. "They're starting to doubt," Laura whispered to herself, a smile creeping onto her face. She rushed to find Jack, eager to share her discovery. "They're not as confident as they were before," she told him. "Our tactics are working. They're beginning to question whether they underestimated us." Jack allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. "Good," he said. "Let's keep pushing." God, the more uncertain they are, the better. Despite the progress, tensions remained high. The Kryn hadn't launched a full-scale counterattack yet, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. Soldiers trained relentlessly, preparing for whatever horrors the aliens might unleash. Civilians braced themselves, fortifying homes and stockpiling supplies. The world held its breath, waiting for the storm to break. Then one morning, the skies darkened unnaturally. Thick clouds gathered overhead, blotting out the sun. At first, People assumed it was a natural phenomenon, freak weather event. Soon, reports flooded in of massive Kryn ships descending from orbit. They positioned themselves above major cities worldwide, their shadows stretching ominously across the landscape. Zorak's voice crackled through every radio, television, and device once again. "You have tested our patience," he growled. "Now you will learn the true cost of defiance." Without warning, beams of energy shot down from the ships, striking urban centers with devastating force. Buildings crumbled, streets erupted in flames, and screams echoed through the air. Millions perished in an instant, and chaos engulfed the planet. The Kryn weren't negotiating anymore. They were punishing. In the aftermath, despair threatened to overwhelm humanity. Entire neighborhoods lay in ruins, and survivors wandered aimlessly, searching for loved ones or shelter. Governments struggled to maintain order, their efforts hampered by the sheer scale of destruction. Even Jack felt the weight of failure pressing down on him. Had they pushed too hard? Had their actions provoked this catastrophe? But amidst the devastation, something unexpected emerged. Unity. People banded together, helping strangers, sharing food and water, and rebuilding what they could. Stories of heroism spread ordinary men and women, risking their lives to save others. Slowly, the spirit of resistance reignited. Humanity wasn't broken yet. At the base, Jack called another meeting. The mood was somber, but determination burned in everyone's eyes. "They want to destroy us," Jack said, his voice steady, despite the grief in the room. "But they've forgotten one thing. Humans don't give up. Not when there's still hope left. We'll regroup, adapt, and strike back harder than ever." Laura nodded, clutching her notebook tightly. "And we'll use what we've learned. The Kryn are arrogant, but they're not invincible. If we focus on their weaknesses, their dependence on stolen tech, we can still win." Daniel crossed his arms, his expression grim but resolute. "Then let's do it. Let's finish what we started." As the team dispersed to prepare for the next phase of the fight, Jack stepped outside, looking up at the alien ships hovering menacingly in the sky. His heart ached for all that had been lost, but he refused to let despair consume him. Humanity had faced countless challenges throughout history and always found a way to endure. This time would be no different. The Kryn had underestimated Earth, and that mistake would cost them dearly. *** document. Part 6 of Aliens laughed at war and ruin until they met mankind. ***. The days following the Kryn's orbital bombardment were among the darkest humanity had ever faced. Cities lay in ruins, their skylines reduced to jagged skeletons. Of steel and concrete, as fires smoldered in the streets, sending thick plumes of smoke into the air. Survivors wandered through the wreckage, their faces blank with shock or streaked with tears. The world had been brought to its knees, and the Kryn seemed unstoppable. But even in the depths of despair, resilience flickered like a candle in the wind. In shelters carved out of basements and abandoned buildings, people came together. Strangers shared food and blankets. Volunteers organized search and rescue missions, digging through rubble to find survivors. Children clung to their parents, asking questions no one could answer. Yet, amid the pain, there was a quiet determination, a refusal to give up. Jack Monroe stood on the roof of the command center, his eyes scanning the horizon. The view was bleak broken buildings, twisted metal, and ash-covered streets, but he refused to look away. This was the reality they were fighting for. Every shattered home, every life lost, fueled his resolve. He clenched his fists, vowing silently that the Kryn would pay for what they had done. Inside, Laura Bennett worked tirelessly alongside Ryan Miller, analyzing data from the recent attacks. They studied satellite images of the destruction, piecing together patterns in the Kryn's targeting. It quickly became clear that the aliens weren't striking randomly. Their beams of energy focused on strategic locations, power plants, water supplies, communication hubs. They weren't just destroying. They were crippling humanity's ability to fight back. "They're trying to break us," Laura said softly, her voice trembling with anger. "Not just physically, but mentally. If we can't rebuild, if we lose hope, then they win. Ryan nodded, typing furiously on his laptop. But we've got something they don't understand. Humans adapt. We improvise. Even when everything seems hopeless, we find a way to keep going. Jack joined them, his expression grim but determined. That's exactly what we'll do. We'll hit them where it hurts most, their arrogance. Let's show them they made a big mistake underestimating us. The team began formulating a new plan, one designed to exploit the Kryn's reliance on stolen technology. Laura suggested targeting the alien fleet's supply lines, cutting off their access to resources. Without fresh materials to repair their ships or replenish their weapons, the Kryn would be forced to retreat or risk being overwhelmed. Ryan proposed using decoy signals to lure the aliens into traps. We can fake transmissions, make them think we've set up new bases or research facilities, he explained. When they send scouts to investigate, we ambush them. Every loss chips away at their confidence and their numbers. Colonel Daniel West added his own input, advocating for small surgical strikes against key targets. KKK! On their entire fleet head-on, he admitted reluctantly. But we can pick them apart piece by piece. Hit their smaller ships first, then work our way up to the bigger ones. Jack listened carefully, weighing each suggestion. By the end of the meeting, they had a combination of deception, sabotage, and precision attacks aimed at weakening the Kryn's grip on Earth. It was risky, but it offered the best chance of turning the tide. Over the next few days, preparations moved quickly. Engineers built EMP devices capable of disabling alien drones and transports. Soldiers trained for high-stakes missions, rehearsing every detail until it was second nature. Civilians contributed to, volunteering to, help construct decoys or provide intelligence on Kryn movements. Everyone played a part, united by a single goal: survival. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack gathered his team for a final briefing. The air was heavy with anticipation, but also with purpose. Around the table sat men and women who had seen horrors beyond imagination yet remained, steadfast in their determination to fight back. This isn't just about revenge, Jack began, his voice calm but firm. It's about showing the Kryn and ourselves that we're stronger than they think, stronger than anyone thinks. We've lost so much already, but we haven't lost everything. Not yet. Laura looked down at her notebook filled with observations and plans. She thought about the millions of lives depending on them, the families torn apart by the Kryn's cruelty. Her hands tightened around the edges of the book, steadying herself. We'll make them regret coming here, she said quietly. For every life they've taken, we'll take 10 times more from them. Daniel nodded, his usual skepticism replaced by quiet resolve. Let's finish this, he said simply. The mission launched under the cover of darkness. Small teams deployed across the globe, carrying EMP devices and explosives. Their targets were carefully chosen supply depots, drone stations, and lightly guarded transports. Each strike was quick and precise, designed to maximize damage while minimizing exposure. Within hours, reports poured in of successful hits. Dozens of Kryn ships went dark, their systems fried by electromagnetic pulses. Transport vessels exploded mid-flight, raining debris onto empty fields far from human settlements. Meanwhile, Laura and Ryan monitored the alien fleet's responses. To their surprise, the Kryn reacted with uncharacteristic hesitation. Instead of launching immediate counterattacks, they regrouped, clearly shaken by the sudden wave of resistance. Their glowing eyes darted nervously, and their movements grew erratic. For the first time, they seemed unsure of themselves. They're scared, Laura whispered, watching footage of the aliens retreating from ambush zones. They didn't expect us to fight back this hard. Ryan grinned, leaning back in his chair. Good, let's keep pushing. The more uncertain they are, the better. As the days passed, the tide began to shift. Humanity's relentless strikes forced the Kryn to divert resources away from their primary assault, slowing their advance. Supplies dwindled aboard the alien ships, and repairs lagged due to a lack of materials. Morale among the invaders plummeted, sowing discord within there. Ranks in the command center, Jack watched the progress unfold with cautious optimism. The Kryn were still a formidable enemy, but cracks were forming in their armor. With each victory, humanity grew bolder, more confident. People who had once cowered in fear now stood tall, ready to reclaim their planet. But Jack knew the battle wasn't over. The Kryn wouldn't surrender easily. Somewhere deep within their fleet, their leaders were plotting their next move. And when it came, it would likely be devastating. Still, Jack allowed himself a moment of pride. Against all odds, humanity had proven itself resilient. The Kryn had laughed at war and ruin, believing themselves untouchable. But now, they were learning a painful lesson. Never underestimate the will to survive. On the horizon, the alien ships loomed ominously, casting long shadows over the broken world below. Jack turned away from the window, his mind already racing with plans for the next phase of the fight. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. *** document. Part 7 of Aliens laughed at war and ruin until they met mankind. *** The Kryn fleet hung above Earth like a dark cloud, its presence casting an oppressive shadow over the planet. Despite humanity's recent victories, the aliens still held the upper hand. Their massive mothership loomed larger than any city, bristling with weapons and glowing faintly in the night sky. It was the heart of their operation, the source of their power, and Jack Monroe knew it had to be taken down. But attacking the mothership directly was suicide. The Kryn's defenses were too strong, their technology too advanced. To even think about infiltrating such a fortress required more than brute force, demanded ingenuity, precision, and a plan so daring that it bordered on madness. That's exactly what Jack proposed. In the command center, Jack gathered his team around the table. Maps of the alien fleet were spread out, marked with red circles highlighting key areas. Laura Bennett sat close by, her notebook filled with observations about the Kryn's behavior patterns. Ryan Miller tinkered with a small device, adjusting wires and circuits as he prepared it for the mission ahead. Colonel Daniel West stood near the back, arms crossed. His usual skepticism softened by grudging respect for Jack's leadership. "We can't fight them head-on," Jack began, his voice steady and calm. "Their shields are too strong there. Numbers too great, but we can get inside. We can hit them where they least expect it." Laura leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You mean sneaking aboard the mothership?" Jack nodded. "Exactly. If we can disable their central systems from within, we'll cripple their entire fleet. Without their command center, they'll fall apart." Daniel frowned, shaking his head. "That's insane. Even if we manage to get inside, how do we survive long enough to pull it off? Those ships are crawling with Kryn soldiers." "Don't need to survive," Jack replied bluntly. "Just need to succeed." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed his words. This wasn't just a mission, it was a sacrifice. The odds of returning alive were slim, but the potential payoff was enormous. If they succeeded, they could turn the tide of the war forever. Ryan broke the silence, holding up the device he'd been working on. "I've modified this EMP unit to emit a concentrated pulse. It'll fry anything electronic within 100-meter radius. If we plant it near their main control hub, we can shut down their entire network," Laura added, flipping through her notes, "and based on their communication patterns, I think I can predict where their central systems are located. They always position their most important tech near the core of their ships." "Daniel, what about you? Are you in?" Daniel hesitated for a moment, then gave a curt nod. "It means taking them down. Count me in." With the team committed, preparations began immediately. Engineers outfitted the squad with specialized gear designed to blend in with the Kryn's environment: heat-resistant suits, cloaking devices, and weapons capable of disabling alien tech. Laura programmed a translator into their helmets, allowing them to mimic the Kryn's gestures and vocalizations. Every detail mattered. Every second counted. The infiltration team consisted of Jack, Laura, Ryan, 2 other operatives, Alina Torres, a skilled pilot, and Marcus Cole, a demolitions expert. Each member had a role to play, and each understood the risks involved. As they suited up, the air buzzed with tension. No one spoke much, focusing instead on mentally preparing for what lay ahead. under the cover of darkness. The team launched from a hidden base aboard a stolen Kryn transport. Ship's design was crude compared to the sleek vessels of the alien fleet, but it served its purpose. Using data gathered during previous missions, Laura guided them toward a docking bay on the mothership's lower levels, a rarely used entrance that offered minimal security. As they approached, Jack's heart pounded in his chest. This was it, the point of no return. Either they succeeded or they died trying. The transport docked without incident thanks to Elena's careful piloting. The team disembarked cautiously, sticking to the shadows as they moved deeper into the alien vessel. The interior was unlike anything they had ever seen. Corridors stretched endlessly, lined with pulsing veins of light that seemed alive. Strange machinery hummed softly, emitting an eerie glow. The air was thick with an acrid smell, making it hard to breathe. Laura stayed close to Jack, her eyes scanning the walls for familiar symbols. She whispered directions quietly, guiding the group toward the ship's core. Along the way, they encountered patrols of Kryn soldiers. Each time, they froze, relying on their cloaking devices to remain hidden. The aliens passed by without noticing, their glowing eyes focused elsewhere. "This place is a maze," Marcus muttered under his breath, wiping sweat from his brow. "Are we supposed to find the control hub?" "You follow Laura," Jack said firmly. "She knows what she's doing." Sure enough, after nearly an hour of navigating the labyrinthian corridors, Laura stopped abruptly. Ahead of them was a massive door, reinforced with alien alloys and guarded by two towering Kryn warriors. Beyond it, they could sense the hum. A powerful machinery, the heart of the mothership. "Okay," Jack whispered, pulling the team into a huddle. "Here's the plan, Elena. You take out the guards, as quickly and quietly. Once we're inside, Ryan plants the EMP device while Marcus sets the charges. Laura and I will keep watch." Elena nodded, slipping a small gadget from her belt. It emitted a high-pitched frequency, imperceptible to human ears, but agonizing to the Kryn. She activated it, aiming it at the guards. Within seconds, the aliens dropped to their knees, clutching their heads in pain. The team slipped past them, entering the chamber beyond. Inside, the sight was overwhelming. Massive panels of alien tech covered the walls, pulsing with energy. Wires snaked across the floor, connecting everything to a central core, a glowing orb suspended in midair. It pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. "That's it," Laura breathed. "Their control hub." Ryan sprang into action, attaching the EMP device to the base of the core. His hands trembled slightly as he worked, aware of the stakes. Marcus moved to the edges of the room, planting explosives at strategic points. Meanwhile, Jack and Laura kept watch, their weapons drawn and ready. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Kryn had detected the intrusion. Heavy footsteps echoed. In the corridor outside, as reinforcements closed in, "We're out of time," Jack shouted. "Finish up." Ryan stepped back, giving a thumbs up. "EMP is armed. 30 seconds to detonation." Marcus double-checked the explosives. "Charges are set. Let's move." The team bolted for the exit, dodging blasts of energy. As Kryn soldiers poured into the chamber, the aliens screeched in fury, their glowing eyes locking onto the intruders. Jack fired blindly behind him, buying precious seconds for the others to escape. They reached the transport bay just as the first explosion rocked the ship. The ground shook violently, throwing them off balance. Smoke billowed through the corridors, and sparks rained down from ruptured conduits. "Go, go," Jack yelled, pushing the team onto the waiting transport. Elena leaped into the pilot's seat, firing up the engines. The ship lifted off just as a second explosion tore through the mothership. The shockwave sent the transport spinning wildly, but Elena managed to stabilize it, steering them toward safety. Behind them, the mothership groaned and shuddered. Its once mighty structure began to collapse, consumed by fire and destruction. The Kryn's prideful flagship, the symbol of their dominance, was falling apart. As they escaped into the void of space, the team watched silently as the wreckage burned. None of them cheered or celebrated. They were too exhausted to numb from what they had endured. But deep down, they knew they had struck a devastating blow against the invaders. Back on Earth, News of the attack spread quickly. People looked up at the sky, watching as the once imposing mothership crumbled into nothingness. Hope flickered anew, fragile but undeniable. The Kryn weren't invincible. Humanity had proven that. Jack stared out the window of the transport, his mind racing. The war wasn't over yet. The Kryn would regroup, and when they did, they would be angrier than ever. But for now, humanity had won a crucial victory, and that was enough to keep fighting.